Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and guess who's here this week? It's Richard.
Yellow.
What?
And that's
Huh?
right.
Oh,
Special guest cameo by Richard. And also it's Michael.
howdy.
What?
Oh my gosh, these two guys. I'm so lucky we got them this week. This week they're going to debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspect of this topic, which is the weirdest states. And I'm assuming you mean states of the United States.
Yes.
Not like just a Fuig state
Yeah,
or
yeah. An
state of
altered state.
general confusion. Yeah.
Yeah. Nonplussed Meliers. Richard, you chose this?
Well, I chose it from our list of possible choices. There's a
I think
Michael.
I think it was one of my choices. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. And I don't know if this has made your list, but it was my starting point, but ultimately didn't make my list. But I was just thinking about Utah,
Oh yeah.
and I thought, man, that's just a weird state.
Yeah.
I was like, it's out there in the West, and it has its own kind of very specific like religious culture that dominates the entire state for the most part. Not saying everybody is
Yeah.
Mormon, but boy, do they got a hold, they got a handle, they got a hold of that state like nothing
Yeah.
else. And they're
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
Separation of we the people, and here's a theocracy out
yeah,
west. Yeah.
and they're just out there doing these Utah things, and it's like this very like, they've got big movie festivals and skiing and just it. But on top of that is like this whole Mormonism that just kind of globs itself, it seems like, onto every aspect of the society. And I thought, man, that's just one of the states in our union that has this strangeness to it that I just can't really relate to. And I start thinking of other states and being like, oh, there's some weird ones.
Yeah. There's some states that I think almost became states because the flag makers were OCD,
Mm-hmm.
like Hawaii, Alaska. Yeah, I guess it would be nice to round that number out to 50. So okay.
I do appreciate. I know, Richard, you're dying to jump in. I can see you just like
All right,
chomping at the bit.
let's start with Richard.
But
Should we start with Richard?
No.
but I
Go ahead, Michael.
I do love the people that want to remove states and like and alter like take it from a 50 to like a 49 or 47 is fine. Just I love that aspect of someone just wants to ruin that perfect 50 state kind of balanced sort of thing and be like, let's carve it back or add another one to it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. The reason I'm excited to go is because, in fact, Utah is on my
Oh,
All right.
list of weirdest states.
super.
All right.
So I was super excited to hear you talk about it.
Okay, let's I guess get going. I guess we start with the only state that's named after a Keanu Reeves character.
Yes, that's true. So as Michael said, there's a lot of Mormons, but where there aren't Mormons, from my experience, and I've been to Utah a couple of times. I went once to Salt Lake City to visit a friend of mine from college, and I went once for work to Ogden, Utah, which is like a couple of, I think, like 45 minutes, maybe an hour north of Salt Lake City. From what I can tell, if there aren't Mormons in Utah, if you're in an area that isn't all Mormon, basically, there's nothing but biker gangs.
Oh wow.
That's at least what I saw in Ogden, Utah,
Now,
where it was like,
the biker gang. Is it a 10-speed bike and a kid with a white shirt and a helmet is driving? Because
yeah,
that's still a Mormon.
It's Napoleon Dynamite trying to jump his little, and Pedro trying to jump their little bike off the little ramp, that sweet ramp that they made. No, actual like biker gangs. When I went to Ogden, the main city street was like a really cute kind of, not small town, but smallish town kind of vibe to it. And they said once you get past whatever this one street was, 15th Street, that's where all the biker gangs are. So you don't want to go to that part of the town. Don't go in any of those bars. Just avoid that.
Wow.
So that was pretty strange to me. And then there's the liquor laws, which the Salt Lake City Tribune I stumbled upon an article from 2021 trying to explain some of the liquor laws, and it didn't really help. Um, there are some things that you might remember that they used to be that if you went into Utah and you wanted to get a drink, you had to get sponsored by somebody. That all bars were technically private clubs, and you had to go and get a membership if you wanted to get a drink inside a bar. Well, they scrapped that for the 2002 Winter Olympics, so we don't have to deal with that anymore. They finally got rid of the law that says that said that the strongest beer that could be sold was 3.2% alcohol by volume.
Mm.
But they did make the law so that the blood alcohol content level is 0.05 instead of 0.08, which, look, I'm not advocating for drunk driving here. But 0.5?
Yeah, that could be NyQuil.
That could be coming home from church, your communion wine.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have communion wine in the Mormon church. I somehow doubt it.
You could have used a moist towelette to get KFC off your fingers and
They'll ring
the
you up
alcohol.
straight right up.
Yeah. So
yeah, but it's just that they're one of the states that has government controlled liquor, but they're also one of the only ones that has government controlled wine sales, and also government control of any beer that's higher than 5% alcohol value, volume alcohol by volume, and it's just having gone there a couple of times. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but like Michael said, it's this weird mix of tourism and Mormonism. And like I said, depending on what part of the state you're in and where you're at, kind of rough biker gang parts of the state too. It's just it's weird, man.
wow. You just reminded me that as in the 90s or late 80s when I was going to college in central Kansas, we suffered under the rule of those type of alcohol laws, and maybe that kept kids from getting drunk. But yeah, there were some taverns that you could only go to were you to be a member and be sponsored in by somebody. You had to sign a book when you go in, and then
Yeah,
they had they had three. You couldn't buy beer at just any time. Like you had to uh, alcohol. You had to buy it like before midnight on such and such day. You couldn't buy it on Sunday. So yeah, it was pretty lame.
I'm constantly baffled by liquor laws when I move out when I go outside of California for any reason. I know
Uh-huh.
my wife and I went on a vacation many years ago to Tennessee where we drove from one side of the state to the other.
Mm-hmm.
Mandatory
And
moonshining, right?
yes, they actually
Got to
give
make
you
your own. Yeah.
they give you a jug when you enter the state,
A
and they say
CD, a
if this
Flagsburg CD.
if this hasn't been turned into, if you haven't figured out a way to make moonshine and fill this jug, you're not allowed to leave the state. But no, I remember driving through and we were like heading to Gatlinburg and we knew we were getting in late and we just wanted like what we should stop in Knoxville since it's a big city and get a 6-pack. And it was a Sunday. And they just looked at us like we were the dumbest individuals in the world when we rolled into the Kroger and tried to find a 6-pack of beer.
No,
Because
Richard, with you,
yeah,
that's not Tennessee specific.
well, that's fair. That could be pretty much anywhere at any time. But yeah, not only do they not have alcohol sales on Sunday, but I think they're not allowed to sell beer inside. I think they're another state where you have to go to a specific liquor and alcohol store to be able to get beer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but you can dance anywhere you want. Doesn't have to go across state line. Just dance. We love it. Dancing.
Oh yeah, square dancing,
Square dance.
hoedown,
Yeah. Hold
all
down.
sorts of dancing. Yeah,
Yeah.
was Footloose set in Utah?
I'm guessing. I don't
Let's
know.
assume that it was.
Or he was more of a Baptist kind of preacher, though. It seems like.
Well, he's one of the Mormon Baptists.
Yeah, the MBs.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Utah. That's one of those states. I think, yeah, because it does seem to kind of go against the one thing, kind of a religious separation of church and state that the kind of the country was kind of founded on. But it's almost like I think almost maybe the states are kind of like kids, and after your 38th one or whatever, they kind of do whatever the fuck they want to. So
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, Winfield, what's your first one?
My first, I'm just going to go alphabetically because I had no real, I didn't want to rank them by being like when is the weirder or not weird or whatever, but Alaska. It helps that it starts with an A, and so I can write it down pretty easily. But Alaska is a weird state, not only because of its um, kind of minute population to the size of this thing that covers seemingly 25% of the United States. I mean, it is part of the United States, but of the kind of lower 48, just this massive area that is populated by, relatively few people, considering how much area it takes up. But so much of it is just this, um, just geological formation of rock and ice and forest and snow and uninhabitability that much is so important to be considered a state when you consider you can just carve some of it away to do, I don't know, yay, can't you give it to Canada? Doesn't Canada know what to do with this much empty space?
Yeah.
We certainly don't.
It's you can only observe Russia for so long. I mean, that's all that they do there. So I think observe Russia. Uh,
It has such a weird, interesting strategic importance for kind of minerals back in the day, or oil currently, and um, logging and mining. It's this huge state that serves a purpose to like fuel other states. I mean,
mhm.
certainly the gold rush was such a big thing, but that happened in so many other states as well. It wasn't just like Alaska wasn't the only one where they found gold. It was like California and Nevada and go on down the line. But like, it serves as this like blocker between us and Russia. It serves as this just gigantic, strange physical thing that's never put properly on a puzzle, a children's puzzle, when you're kind of filling it out. It's always like, oh, here's the 48 states, and then here's Alaska
Yeah.
that's out of proportion, and Hawaii that's over on the. They kind of cram them in as like, oh yeah, kids, remember these are kind of parts of the United States that you're probably never going to go to.
Yeah. There's sometimes they're floating in, like if it was the color forms version of the map, sometimes they're actually just kind of floating in the ocean
Yeah.
in the Gulf of Mexico or something like that. You know, one thing that's also is like I never met anybody from Alaska. I don't think so. I don't think I know anybody from
No,
Alaska.
certainly, it has an importance because of its kind of, the native inhabitants that still makes up a large percentage of the population of the states. It has the highest percentage of kind of a native peoples and culture.
Mhm.
Um, but then I think probably so much of what has colored my thoughts in Alaska is, bent on northern exposure as much as as much as anything, as much as any sort of like all of my pop culture is based on, or all of my opinions of something is based on what I've seen of it on TV. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's the town with a moose, and
Mhm.
the other guy that wants to make movies, and the cute brunette that flies in and out, and
Danny Delaney, Ed Chigliak.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think that it is so unique and weird because it is so remote in a way
Yeah.
that Hawaii is the exact opposite. Everybody's going to Hawaii. Everybody wants to go to Hawaii. It's as remote
Sure.
as any, place else in the union, but it's not like going to Hawaii is weird. If someone's like, I'm taking a vacation to Alaska, you're like, oh,
Well,
you're one of those people.
the only time people take vacations to Alaska is when they're going on a cruise,
That's
right?
true.
So even when you're going to Alaska, your whole main goal is to be off the coast of Alaska, to not even be in Alaska.
Yeah.
On a buffet floating. Yeah.
Yeah, not seeing as little of the actual Alaska as possible.
Okay. Richard, what's your second one?
All right, so Michael went for big. He went big on his last choice
Yeah.
with Alaska. I thought let's mix it up and go the opposite and go with Rhode Island,
Oh wow. Okay.
America's smallest state.
Yeah.
Um, but also its second most densely populated state.
Is it? Wow.
Besides New Jersey is the only one that's more densely populated than Rhode Island. And my question is, why? Like, why would so many people want to live in Rhode Island?
Okay, I start by
Ding, ding,
shout out
ding.
to Jackie Newcomb, the only confirmed listener to this podcast in my current extended family, Rhode Island resident, native, no, currently not resident but native, and I think this is an opportunity, Ms. Newcomb, for a rebuttal. If you want to record it or come on the next episode of the podcast, it's your opportunity to
Yeah,
answer Richard's question. Why?
I'd love to hear why. Maybe
Other than his
maybe it's
Jewish.
just my Rhode Island ignorance coming through here. But I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of industry there. It doesn't. I mean, I know there's a lot. It's the ocean state. I know there's a lot of shoreline, albeit rocky shoreline. So it's not like you're going there to necessarily hang out at the beach. I don't think. But I don't know. It's just, why a state that small? Why did we even bother? Why not just erase that line and just blend it in with Connecticut?
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's reasons for it. I know that there's because it was part of, when this goes back to pre-colonial days and the whole history behind it. But Rhode Island, up until I think 2020, technically had the term plantation in its name.
Oh.
Yeah, technically until a amendment in 2020 to amend the state constitution, it was known as the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. I'll just say this. Good idea getting rid of plantations from your name. Probably shouldn't have had to wait until 2020 to get rid of it, but I'm still applauding the effort for at least getting rid of it. And my last thing about Rhode Island is it was this haven for the very, very rich during the Gilded Age. Around Newport, Rhode Island, and that area. So you have like the Vanderbilts and pretty much anyone, Rockefellers, anyone who you could think of that was super rich during the Gilded Age had their mansion in Rhode Island.
Those places are amazing.
Which just seems like a really, again, why Rhode Island? Not really sure. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to hear from a either native or current Rhode Islander what makes it so special. I'd like to know. Educate me.
Yeah, I think they might say like the same reason those residences were built on just a beautiful coastline, like per mile. That coastline is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if there's some kind of physical boundaries that make it kind of logical, that have some geological or geographical boundaries. That, yeah, Rhode
Maybe
Islanders.
Maybe it's one of those states that is really hard to like defend against. Like if all 50 states break up, maybe because of that like craggy coastline, maybe it's just like it will be the one that is left standing. Like no one else, it's like something out of Game of Thrones. Like
right.
The Erie is up there and it has like, these intense rock formations and it's remote and people also just kind of forget it's there too. So like you're busy attacking, go after Pennsylvania. We hate you. Let's go after what's another horrible state? Ohio. And then everybody forgets about Rhode Island. And they're just waiting it out. They're just in their big those big deck chairs that are really nice to sit in outside.
Uh-huh.
They're just looking at the ocean and watching this entire country tear itself apart. And Rhode Islanders are just like, I don't know what a Rhode Island accent is like, but I assume it's something a little something like this. Hello, I'm from Rhode Island.
Okay, so one simple Google. It was the first British colony in America to formally declare its independence.
No.
Yeah, but it was also the last of the original 13 states to ratify the Constitution.
That's like a It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia move. That's like Mac playing both sides, so he always comes out on top.
Always wins, yeah.
Well, also, it's not called Texas Island, Kansas Island. None of those are islands. Neither is Rhode Island.
Yeah, that's another point that I hadn't considered. But yeah,
point for weirdness.
Half the name is wrong. Okay, Winfield.
Yeah, and they don't even have a road.
It's
just all dirt.
It's all dirt. It's all grass.
All the way back in the beginning of recorded history, there's been one thing that humans have excelled at, both in effectiveness and creativity, and that's been finding the cruelest and most innovative ways to hurt or kill one another.
And on our new show, we plan on covering all of it.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Dan, and we host a podcast called Torture.
It's a show where we examine the most horrible things people have done to one another over the centuries and tell you about all the methods and devices that our ancestors were able to come up with, including the when, the where, and the people they were used on.
Yeah, we'll go way back. We're talking biblical times, ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient China, to cover things like crucifixion, lynching, and the brazen bull.
Up to medieval Europe for everything like the choke pear, the guillotine, and the rack.
And the more modern days like solitary confinement, waterboarding, and electrocution.
But that's only a small part of the history of human cruelty, because to really cover the issue, we also have to talk about the people that implemented them and the events in which they were used.
Historical figures like Vlad the Impaler, Nero, and Pol Pot.
Groups, institutions, and cults like the Viet Cong, Shinrikyo, and the CIA.
Notable and historical events like the Japanese rape of Nanking, any one of the many Inquisitions, and the story of Blanche Monnier.
And it wouldn't be a podcast about human cruelty if we didn't cover some of the most sadistic people to ever live. Processed serial killers like H.H. Holmes, Fred and Rosemary West, Robert Bordella, and of course, BTK. But the most important and controversial topic we will cover in depth and to great lengths, the vital discussion and observation of
the complete and utter difference between Irish and American foods.
We talk about it a lot.
A lot.
Like so fucking much. Every episode, somehow we just end up talking about, well, this is American food. Well, this is Irish food.
So much you think it's too much, but then you realize it's not quite enough.
Yeah, like it's a little like at this point we could probably just rename the podcast "The Difference Between Irish and American Food" and a little bit of torture.
If you do it as like an off branch,
yes,
thing.
I don't understand. Anyways, we'll have new episodes every 2 weeks on Sundays.
So go find us on Twitter and Instagram at TorturePod. Email us at torturepod@gmail.com and like, follow, and subscribe.
And most importantly, listen to Torture, a history of human cruelty, starting June 26th, wherever you get your podcasts.
What's your second one, Michael?
Oh, California.
Oh, sure.
Our state that 2/3 of this podcast currently reside in, and that used to be all 100% lived in. California is weird, not only in its just physicality, how much of a coastline it takes up, but just how much of an interior farmland is devoted to California. How much of the state is just this huge chunk of just like forest and gigantic trees. I think we talk a lot about, like, so far we've talked a lot about the physicality of these states that that make them so weird. California isn't one that is kind of one single thing. Like you think of I don't know. What is this? One of the states in the middle. Nebraska. Is there much difference between one part of Nebraska than the other? Probably not. Maybe it speaks to my ignorance. But California is so just weirdly diverse physically that makes it so strange. But then also, I don't know, the people in this state are ones that have been flocked to from all these other states. So it's just this weird mix of people and personalities. And maybe, I don't know, Los Angeles in particular is one that is so a smorgasbord of just weirdos that have come here to do something that makes it feel so different from any place else. But there's that. Northern California is so different from Southern California in that they hate us so much. How much of does this usually happen in other parts of the state? Do they just hate the other part of the state so vehemently that
like upstate New York hates Manhattan? Like,
do
what's
they?
going on? Yeah, no, no,
I don't know. But like, is there another part? Is there a part of, I don't know.
Is it entertainment that makes it that, and that the industry is so shallow?
Could be. I think that it's kind of like almost like kind of like two like rich siblings. Like they're both kind of affluent in their own way, and they're both different in their own way.
Yeah.
But that's also doesn't speak for the middle part of California, which is totally different from like San Francisco or Los Angeles. It doesn't speak for
like
even the more northern parts of California, which are so disparate and hippie based and very laid back and have nothing to do with San Francisco. So I don't know.
Yeah, California is almost like its own slice of North America because California, San Francisco is kind of like the Canada, like and then San Diego is kind of like the Mexico. But then LA is kind of like the America, like the assholes to the south who everybody thinks is the noisy neighbors downstairs who.
Well, I think that's Central California. Having grown up in Central California, we're kind of the Midwestern breadbasket of California. Then LA is kind of like the noisy big city folk.
Did you say meth basket?
No, we'll get to eat both. Yeah, could be both.
Well, it's funny, but too, like you think of like, I mean, you speak to it just now, Richard. You think if someone says you're from California, and I think that they're automatically they peg you as left wing or liberal, or you lean a certain way. And although that's true for a good percentage of the state's population, that doesn't necessarily mean it covers the vast percentage of the area that's taken up by this state. That their political views, though they might not be represented population-wise, geographically, there's a lot more of the state that is might lean a certain other way.
I think it is also, it's almost like if you shake the U.S., everything that isn't tied down goes to California.
That's funny.
And there's so many aspirational songs about California, so many career. I used to joke about the number of people in LA who left something wonderful somewhere in their lives. Like, the girl next door, wonderful home, my big family, all there in Michigan. But I wanted to come to LA to be a production assistant on Two Broke Girls. Like the stupidest dreams that people have, and the beautiful things that they forego in their homes. So it's our halftime, and we're going to invite you to go out and download, rate, and review past episodes, to go out on our social handles that suggest future episodes. We could have a all Rhode Island episode about all the things about Rhode Island, the things that are great about Rhode Island.
Maybe we'll travel to Rhode Island as a group.
Oh, that'd be
to do a live episode.
Yes.
From Providence, Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
Celebrating. That seems like something Letterman would have done back in the 80s.
With
a salute to Rhode Island.
Yeah, absolutely. With Larry Bud Melman. Okay, so Richard is going to let us know his third.
All right. Fine. I guess it's Florida.
Also on my list.
Ouch. You guys.
Sorry, Jeff.
Ouch.
And there was a big part of me that didn't want to include Florida on this list because I think Florida at this point, they're so in on the joke of Florida Man
Yeah.
that it's almost become like a tourist attraction. But yeah, there's the thing about Florida to me, and everyone I know that's from Florida, their first instinct is to go, well, it's not really like you hear on television or read in articles. Okay, that is true. It is true that one time I did see someone punch out a crocodile, but the crocodile really had it coming.
Oh yeah.
So it's people have there's a defense mechanism, I think, from native Floridians about Florida man, Florida woman cliches. But there's also sort of a little bit of pride in it as well. Like, yeah, we've got the most fucked up state in the union. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I see that defiant attitude here. There's a little bit of something about being a coastal kind of state, a state with a lot of swamp land, and a
Yeah.
lot of challenges from a natural standpoint. People who are used to kind of defending themselves, not just to the to the west, all the people judging them, but also definitely for the east, the hurricanes coming in. And so it's definitely a state with a defensive stance. And I think, yeah, still some kind of remains of the Confederacy, like Southern kind of stuff, Civil War stuff going on here
Well,
for sure.
you've got that going on. You've got where you're at in Orlando, which is basically a combination entertainment center and land of 1,000 box stores and chain restaurants. From what I hear, I don't know. Is that fairly accurate, Jeff?
Yeah, it's a big cheesecake factory here, pretty much. So.
Yeah, so it's so you've got Orlando, which is its own unique thing. You've got Miami, which is just completely different than anything else. Then you go up to like Jacksonville, and you're basically in rural Alabama at that point. When you go that far north and west, so kind of like California, you've got all these different cultures and sort of ethos that are sort of make up the different parts of the state. And I find that fascinating and weird.
I think by the time statehood, because St. Augustine is like the oldest part of the United States, and I think by the time statehood was more nobody here planned on being a state. In fact, nobody here like planned on being the same country for more than 20 years in a row. It's like Spain, it's like France, and it's all that stuff. So I can see why it's got this schizophrenia. But yeah, I do think there's, in a way, Florida identity is kind of like American identity, where its individualist nature paves the way for the stupidity of its behavior. So,
right.
But yeah, I'm kind of learning to kind of adjust from, it's funny, the last one of Michael's was California, because for a while there, whenever I said LA, people I would excuse that, like, well, I'm not blank, or I'm not this, or I'm not that. And now I've got a whole set of other things that I'm kind of excusing.
Did you ever feel like when you were in LA, did you ever at some point feel like an Angelino, so to speak? Was that ever something that was like, you grafted a trait onto you? Like, we were just like, oh yeah, or was it always like, no, I feel very much from Kansas City. I'm always will be Kansas City. This is always going to be part of my personal DNA and makeup and kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think swap out Midwest for Kansas City because
Okay.
I related more to Minneapolis because kind of my first out of college home on purpose. But yeah, I think there was a lot of times when I don't know. I think sometimes when you say I'm from LA, people I know when I came out to Florida um, to kind of test drive this place, and I said I was from LA. There were a few looks, kind of like, oh, this guy thinks he's high shit or something like that. So, but yeah,
I
I
just
didn't get.
wonder if some of that Florida weirdness has seeped into you yet. I haven't seen it. I mean,
I have.
I haven't seen you, in the Okefenokee swamp or anything.
I haven't worn sleeves since I got here.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. All right. Then Michael, what's your fourth?
My fourth, South Dakota, the
Oh,
only state that really you could combine it with another state, and we'd be like, that's fine.
yeah.
Right.
A state that is so weird because it has such a lack of a personality. It seems
Yeah.
that I had to like double check like what the state capital was. I had to double check to see if Mount Rushmore was in South Dakota or North Dakota. And even though I'm 99% sure Mount Rushmore is in South Dakota, maybe it's in North Dakota. Let me
Yeah.
look on the. There it is. I'm still not sure. I read it on
Yeah.
Wikipedia, and Wikipedia can be a little iffy itself. But I don't know. South Dakota to me just has the. It's strange because I think of other states, and I think of wow, at least North Dakota is potentially freezing all the time. I think. I don't know. It's north. It's got the word north in it, so I'm kind of like I have an idea of that. But South Dakota just feels like they lopped it off so they could have two more senators and an extra member of the House of Representative that would vote in a certain way.
Mm.
But it hasn't really. What have they contributed other than I assume kind of beautiful grasslands and uh, maybe it has its own. And that to me, that's so weird that a state doesn't have a personality. Maybe that's what you were getting at too, Richard, with Rhode Island. But like, I don't know. I can think of other states, and I can graft some sort of personality on there. I think of Wyoming, and I think of big fly fishing in this big, like this big open country, and I think South Dakota probably has that too. But I wouldn't know. I'm sure it has. Obviously it has the Black Mountains, and it has Mount Rushmore there. I think still. I'm reading it. I'm looking at the words. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I think that it's so strange that like I don't know if I've ever met a single person from South Dakota, except and maybe I have, but maybe they were from North Dakota, and I think that's the trouble. I think we kind of alluded to at the beginning that rounding out to 50 states. Let's combine these two into one. Make
Yeah.
District of Columbia, turn it into Columbia, the state, and get back to 50 or add Puerto Rico or something. Let's do something to give Dakota some sort of personality by making it interesting for a little bit.
Yeah. Was it Wall Drug in South Dakota or is that North Dakota? Yeah.
Again, who knows?
Yeah.
Who
I mean,
knows?
nobody knows. The people from there don't know.
I think that's at that point where just even the South Dakota people are like, no, that's Canada. Like
Yeah.
that's not. They're not even. That's fascinating because I think of South Dakota as kind of like a place where Kevin Costner might probably own some land or they film cool stuff there, but North Dakota is just like no. Tundra.
It's Fargo, is
It's
what
Fargo.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Manfredi, your final stage.
Okay,
What stage you gonna shit on?
I was all hot and bothered to do, excuse me, West Virginia, because really, wasn't Virginia enough of a pain in our asses historically?
Yeah.
Did we really need a second one of those? But then I started thinking about a state that I probably spent more time in other than California than any other state.
Mm.
And how weird it is. That state is Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's the only state to have legalized prostitution. It's the only state other than New Jersey to allow, just legalized gambling everywhere. So you would think, great, sounds pretty liberal to me. No, it's a purple state. So I don't know how exactly we got these really sort of maybe it's like a libertarian streak. I'm not sure, but we got like these really liberal sort of social agenda happening. But then the state itself is not particularly liberal.
Mm-hmm.
And also, much like with Utah, when it comes down to outside of Las Vegas or like the Reno Carson area, nobody lives there.
Right.
I'm convinced there is nobody other than survivalists who live anywhere in Nevada outside of the two metropolitan areas. It's strange. It's one of those things like we've all driven, I'm sure, from Las Vegas or from LA to Las Vegas and back. And it's like once you hit state line, and there's all the casinos that are there just to try and sucker people in who want to gamble their money right this second.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past that, it's like nothing. No gas stations. It's post-apocalyptic. It's creepy.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like it's underdeveloped because it can afford to be due to the Vegas revenue? Like it can be. That doesn't make sense. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, it's
why the urban the urban sprawl hasn't spread out any further than it has.
Well, I must feel like Vegas is the anomaly, right? Like you're saying, outside of these two places, there's nothing there. There shouldn't be anything there if there wasn't this unstoppable slot machine that didn't spit out enough cash to fill that place full of water and buildings and restaurants and things like that. It wouldn't be there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there would have been, I guess the silver rush back in the 1800s, but once you get beyond that, yeah, I mean, geographically, it's mountains and then it's desert.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I went to a car race up in Fernley, Nevada, which is maybe 90 minutes outside of Reno.
Yeah.
And we were sitting there in the bleachers and we looked behind us because we could hear like this start. And you could see this dust storm coming from probably a half mile away.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone kind of looked at it and was like, oh, here we go, dust storm. Everyone get ready for it. And everyone just kind of zipped up their hoodies and kind of crouched down. And I'm looking at this thing and it's just this wall of dust coming at us.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, is this how people live during the Dust Bowl? No wonder everyone like gave up everything to escape. Why would you live here?
A good friend fell in love with Laughlin, Nevada.
Oh my God.
He also was an avid runner and wanted to start his own half marathon 10K. And he chose Laughlin, Nevada. And, there's it's kind of a mini, not even Vegas, it's like a mini Fremont Street, the old part of Vegas is in Laughlin, Nevada. And but he was talking to an event planner coordinator for one of the casinos, and like another event planner might say, we were going to have the wedding outside, but it rained. Her natural disasters were all out of the Bible, but chapters you've never read before. It was like we were going to have it outside, but then mink, yeah, or no, chinchillas, like a horde of chinchillas came through the desert, or it was, they had wasps, they had locusts, they had a plague of, like frogs flying from the sky, but then it was something like yaks. It was like,
right.
What?
Is this the Mongolian steppes? What is this?
Yeah. Herds of yaks, things that you would never even imagine would come and just decimate the town. And she was like, try being in the Chamber of Commerce and trying to launch a jazz festival or something like that, knowing that you're going to be pelted by grasshoppers.
A million bats will come in the middle of a solo.
Bats
fly into everyone's horns.
Your sousaphone. It's so funny. Well, there's also, I think the answer we all know is Area 51, right?
Oh, sure. There's that too.
That's what's keeping the government is controlling that area and using Jewish space lasers to zap people with. So
Funded by George Soros, of course.
Yep. Exactly. All right, guys. Well, this has been fun shitting on the states.
Yeah.
But you shit on California, so it's fair. And we shit on Florida. Both of you did. So let's go with Florida. And because religion, Utah. Because crazy, let's go California. And then I guess I got to do another one. Do I got to do another one?
Yeah.
Because you know what? Rhode Island. Jackie Newcomb. I expect you to call in.
And you know what, Jeff? You may not know that you did this, but you just selected the 4 stops on our World Tour 2022-2023.
Oh my gosh.
World Tour. Doesn't leave the United States of America.
Oh my God. Let me check Ticketmaster. 0 tickets sold so far.
Hey, that means 0 return, though, so that's something.
That's true. That's true. This has been the Mount Rushmore Crapping on States. I'm Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.